Before we get, are you an Olympics guy?
Yeah.
I love the Olympics. Honestly, I love them.
Although not as much as I used to be. The IOC's really let it get out of control.
I guess so. But it's just like seeing all those athletes and pageantry and like I love it. And there's so many new sports. Breakdancing is a sport now. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's the problem. Well, no, the Summer Olympics especially, but both of them have gotten way too big.
I guess so. But did you know that like they had so many more sports back in the day? I didn't know that in the Olympics. I just found this out. There used to be an art competition that you could win a gold for like sculpture and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Well, no, the ancient Greeks did that.
Yeah, but no, I read that it went up until 1952. Alrighty.
Art competitions don't require any big infrastructure, so that would be fine.
I guess so. So you have a problem with the infrastructure. Okay. Well, I mean,
that's the problem. Is you have to build more, and they're like about 20 years ago they said they were going to try and cap it at 28 events and about 10,000 athletes, and they've just abandoned that. It's just growing out of control. Like the kayak event, not the flat one, the what's it called, the rapids one.
Right.
You have to build a brand new thing because nobody has one already.
Yeah, exactly.
And it cannot be used for anything else. So you have to build this thing that is designed to be a white elephant.
And then I guess it just becomes an amusement or something for the rest of the time?
It becomes nothing. It just rots. It's used for training sometimes, depending on the country. But my big thing is this. Come up with 2 lists. Schedule, call it whatever you want. One is the core sports. Track, swimming, boxing, gym, handful of others.
Right.
And then have a second one that's way longer. If you're going to host the Olympics, you must do every sport on the first list, and you can pick 20 sports from the second list or whatever. Pick a number.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine though? Like you just train 4 years breakdancing your life away, and then the next Olympics, they don't have breakdancing anymore.
But that's how it works now. If you play squash, you can never have a medal.
True. But
at least this waste.
The next Olympics, my buddy keeps telling me, "Oh, the next Olympics, squash is coming." Well, okay.
Or whatever sport. I mean, right now, that's how we have it. The other good thing about my system is you can't try to rig your system. So when China's hosting, they intentionally set out to win as many medals as possible. So for instance, there are certain things you want to focus on. You want to focus on low-profile sports with lots of medals. Archery, low-profile sport, lots of events, and you can have you're going to lots of medals for each. If you don't know what the program's going to be more than like 8 years in advance, you can't rig it because you don't know.
Right. So if you've stuck around and listened this long, you may have figured out that today we're talking about the Olympics. Adam?
Well, by the time you listen to this bonus episode, the 2024 Olympics will be underway. This year's event is taking place in some hick town called Paris, instead of a real city like Toronto. Now, of course, Toronto has bid to host the Olympics numerous times, but something always seemed to get in the way.
Toronto's first Olympic bid was supposed to be for the 1960s Games, after losing the British Empire Games to Vancouver. Today, we call them the Commonwealth Games. Mayor Alan Lamport and former Mayor Robert Saunders traveled to the 1954 IOC meeting in Athens, where they learned that the bids wouldn't be accepted until the following year. One would have thought that they could learn that without having to travel to Greece. In October, a bid questionnaire was sent to Saunders, who was supposed to coordinate communications with the IOC. The problem was that Saunders died in a plane crash in January, and nobody else seemed to know about the questionnaire. When Toronto missed the March 1st deadline to respond, the city was removed from consideration. However, planning for the bid would continue until April, when the city government finally found out about the missing questionnaire. In my mind, the one odd thing about this story is that it happened in the 50s. This really seems more like something that the modern Toronto government would do.
Now, you'll sometimes read that Toronto also bid for the 1964 Olympics, but that's not really accurate. After the embarrassment of being eliminated from the 1960 competition, Mayor Nathan Phillips wrote a letter to IOC President Avery Brundage expressing interest in hosting the 1964 game. Brundage wrote back saying that bids wouldn't be accepted for several years. After that, the city seems to have forgotten about it.
Toronto's next bid was for the 1976 Olympics. This bid proposed to build a dome stadium and pool at the foot of Bathurst, along with a new subway line along Queen West. Wouldn't that have been great? The island airport would be moved to the east end of the islands near the Leslie Street Spits and replaced by a mixed-use development called Harbor City, where they would build the Olympic Village. However, by a vote of 19 to 17, the Canadian Olympic Association chose to endorse a bid from Montreal instead. Considering how things turned out for Montreal, losing this vote might not have been the worst thing.
The first Olympic bid with a serious chance of success was for the 1996 Games. This bid proposed to build the Olympic Village in the former railway lands, now occupied by City Place. A new version of Exhibition Stadium would act as the main Olympic venue, and an aquatic center would be built at Ontario Place. The velodrome would be built at Centennial Park in Etobicoke, while basketball matches would take place in the Canada Coliseum, a new arena to be built in North York. Local opposition came from a group called Bread Not Circuses, which wanted to use the money budgeted for the Olympics on social spending instead. In the end, the 1996 Olympics were awarded to Atlanta. And on a personal note, I remember watching the announcement on TV and being heartbroken when the IOC president said Atlanta. I can still hear it. It was that strong of a memory. Later on, we would learn that IOC members had been paid as much as $120,000 for their votes, which may be one reason why Toronto lost. However, the political feuding at home certainly didn't help.
For me, this is an Olympic bid that I remember, and it's the last major bid. It was in 2008. In response to opposition for the last bid, former Mayor David Crombie, generally seen as a consensus builder, was chosen to lead the 2008 bid for Toronto. The city meant to use the bid to revitalize the waterfront, which made sense because Crombie was also head of the Waterfront Regeneration Trust. As such, the bid included a host of infrastructure projects along the lake, like the construction of Fort York Boulevard and an LRT service on Queens Quay East. However, pressure from the Harris government would eventually push Crombie into the background to be replaced by corporate types like John Bitto, who used to own the Raptors. Mayor Mel Lastman also heard the bid, declaring just a few weeks before the vote to be held in Kenya, "I'm sort of scared of going there, but the wife is really nervous. I just see myself in a pond of boiling water with all these natives dancing around me." It was not a good look for the city. Toronto would ultimately finish second behind Beijing.
Toronto was considered the early favorite for 2012. However, this idea died when the 2010 Winter Olympics were awarded to Vancouver. Major players like London, Paris, and New York were planning to bid for 2012. And one of the reasons they supported Vancouver was to remove Toronto from the competition. Afterwards, the city decided to shift its attention to the Pan American Games, which we hosted in 2015. In the aftermath of that successful event, there was a lot of discussion about making a bid for the 2024 Olympics, the ones that just began. But the application deadline was less than 2 months away, and Mayor John Tory ultimately decided not to pursue a bid.
Will Toronto ever host the Olympics? Do we even want to anymore? Only time will tell, especially with the World Cup coming to Toronto in 2026. There's already some issues around there, so having big sporting events in the city will be a contentious issue going forward in the future, but we're excited to see what happens.